What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of State of the Steelers. I'm Daniel. And today, you know, is another day that's gone by that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have QB1. And I put that in quotations because the Pittsburgh Steelers ended up signing Mason Rudolph a little bit earlier this week. I'm sure everybody's aware of this. I'm a huge Mason Rudolph fan. I thought they would have given him the opportunity last year. That was for those that have been following and tuning in. That was the direction that I was hoping the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to be going in. Last year I was duped. I'll be honest. This is why this year I was into what's the word I'm looking for. I was a little bit apprehensive when it came to the Pittsburgh Steelers being all in on Justin Fields and them saying they were all in on Justin Fields. And the main reason was because that was something that they sounded very familiar about what they said about the quarterback position last year with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. Last season at the end of the year, Art Rooney and Coach Tomlin couldn't finish a press conference or a interview without bringing up Mason Rudolph, even if it wasn't brought up by the reporters in the room. So I thought they were going to bring him back. They didn't offer him a contract until after they signed Russ. That kind of told him that he wasn't going to be the starter, and how long it took them to send him a contract, etc. He ended up going with the Titans for a year, and now he's back with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's the only signed quarterback on the roster. And I'll be honest, I mean, if the Steelers go into week one with Mason Rudolph as QB1 and some sort of rookie or another quarterback behind him that's not named Aaron Rodgers, I would be okay with it. I think that this team, with the weapons that they have around them, DK Metcalf is taking number 4. So that means that George Pickens is most likely going to stay since he'll be wearing number 14, and obviously DK ain't wearing 14. You have those two weapons on the outside. You're going to move one of those guys into the slot every now and then, but you have some speed there as well. You have Roman Wilson, who ran a very, very quick 40 that, he's not as fast as Calvin Austin, but, very quick guy that the Steelers haven't really yet utilized. And then you have Calvin Austin, who the Steelers have. And I think that when you look at what Mason has done in the past, it was a preseason game, but that's who he worked with not too long ago when he was the third string quarterback or the second string guy before taking over for Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky at the end of 2023. Those were his guys, because remember, there was a time where Calvin Austin was having a hard time getting on the field. And we all saw that beautiful pass from Mason down the sideline against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to Calvin Austin in the preseason. And now he has two other guys that can go down deep and get the ball. But the title of the show is It Was Always Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's the case, because let's go back. And before I got too far into the Mason Rudolph talk, I wanted to kind of transcend that into or transition it in from where last year, how they were talking about Mason, to this year they were talking about Justin. Now you see the check or the payday that Justin got. It's $20 million deal. 2 years, 20 million a year, 40 million, 30 million guaranteed by the Jets. Reports are the Steelers offered a $30 million contract, 15 million guaranteed. So it was the first year that was guaranteed, because it's obviously 15 years each. 15 million guaranteed. Majority of, and this isn't something that's a surprise when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers and how they structure their contracts. And so obviously the only thing they were giving him is a 1-year deal. And when you look at, for instance, so the other player or the other persons that are out there in the market, like your Danny Jones, who got 18 million, your Minshew's, those guys that are up there between the 12 to 18 mil, those are backups. Those are guys that are projected to be backups. The market is what the market is. It's not about feelings. It's not about anything other than that. And when you look at the Steelers and you say, all right, these guys wanted Justin Fields. He was supposedly they wanted him to be their starting quarterback. Don't you think they would have given him at least what it was projected to be his what was his 5th-year option as a rookie. I think it was like 20 to 25 million, somewhere around there. They didn't offer him anything near that. Now, the lowest paid or the lowest paid quarterback who's not who's projected to be the starting quarterback, who's not on a rookie deal right now is Justin Fields at 20 million a year. Now, before his signing, it was 25 million a year. Now, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you're going into this year and you're thinking, all right, I need to gather and I need to get a quarterback and I want my QB1 and I have invested in this guy for a year. Nobody else has seen him. He's a surprise to absolutely everybody else. They've only seen 6 games outside of what he did in Chicago. In Chicago, nobody wanted him. I mean, the Steelers got him for a 6th-round pick. Everybody had an opportunity to trade and could have gotten Justin Fields for very little on the dollar. And nobody wanted him last season when the Steelers ended up trading for him. He went throughout the entire and he was a late trade, remember, because Kenny Pickett didn't want to handle being around with Russell Wilson. He didn't want to have the competition. So he was traded at that point. But everybody had an opportunity to get him. And yet nobody did. So he wasn't like this hot commodity. His record isn't that impressive. His passing touchdowns or his passing record or statistics aren't that impressive. So everybody had a chance. He wasn't this like generational talent at that point where everybody was looking at him saying, all right, he's going to be a starter in the NFL. But you've had him for a year. You feel comfortable enough that you want to make him your starter. Don't you think you would at least match the lowest paid quarterback that's a starter or projected to be a starter who's not on a rookie deal? And that would have been at 25 million, which is over what the Jets paid Justin Fields. And to be honest with you, I think that if the Pittsburgh Steelers would have offered Justin Fields a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal, even less, 18 million a year or something to that nature on 2 years, back at the end of February or in the middle of February when the season ended, I guarantee you wouldn't be here. I know a lot of people are saying, no, he wanted to test the market. He wanted to test the market. There are people that are signing as soon as tampering opens up. Is that just because the first person that calls right at 12:01 or whatever time it was that it started, and so we want to offer you a contract right now, you have to say yes, and they're like yes, and then they get it out to the Schefters of the world and they put that out there? No, they've been talking for a while. If somebody's saying that they want to go and wait and test free agency, it's because they know something. They know that they're going to get more out there. Now if the team is pushing it like we're going to let them test the market, it's because they know also. They know he's not going to get much more, or at least they hope so. There's going to be times where somebody's not being honest out there, like, oh man, we wouldn't pay that much for that guy, or something to that nature, and like, hey, we know your value. And then somebody, the Browns, they go and do a Deshaun Watson type of deal. That's always possible. But the good teams, I mean, they know. And it wasn't a surprise. I mean, New York, the Jets were a team that popped up a while ago. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, hey, it's the deadline is at 12 and 12:01 the Jets got into play and 12:02 Justin Fields signed. That's not how it worked. So if somebody's saying they're going to wait till they get there, it's a nice way of saying I'm leaving this team. And so to me, the fact is that the Steelers didn't offer Justin Fields' contract allegedly or reportedly until very close to the end to the start of free agency, right before it started. But to me, I think it was a low blow offer that they knew wasn't going to work. I mean, the same thing with Sam Darnold. They gave him a low ball offer. I don't know who else they may have reached out and talked to, but at this point, it's Rodgers or bust. Now, I personally think it was always going to be Rodgers. I think this is the guy that they had in mind. This is the guy that they've been working on. Because remember, they stated that it was either Russell or it was Fields. Well, Fields is out of the picture. He signed with New York. Now, Russell's doing his tour all the way around, so again, they lied because Russell is the only one they probably did not offer a contract, and he's out doing his thing. So to me, I think it was always going to be Aaron Rodgers, and we'll go into my thoughts about Aaron Rodgers and my thoughts on Mason Rudolph and what they'll do here in a few minutes. We're going to take a break real quick. You don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And we're back. Welcome back to the show. Before we get back into the content, I want to remind you guys of our website, StillCurrentNetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Make sure you go check this out. Check out the website there. When the Aaron Rodgers signing officially breaks, it'll definitely be there. And so much more. All the breaking news coverage, other podcasts, and you won't be disappointed. So, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, like I said, I think it was always going to be him. It appears that the other offers to other persons weren't really, maybe there. But then again, I mean, it appears that that the Steelers offer to Aaron Rodgers is lower than what the Giants are offering. And so I called this on what was it? It was on the Hangover with Shannon White, which I'll be back on this Monday to talk about anything new that's happened. But I was on this past weekend or this past Monday, and I told him, I was like, it sounds like the Steelers are becoming a mechanic special, but instead of a mechanic special, quarterback special. And what that is, or a mechanic special, is I was going through the Facebook and marketplace, just kind of browsing through the vehicles, just kind of looking at cars, and I found a car that was requiring some engine work, and they called it a mechanic special. It was a really nice car. Everything was really clean. Everything was good about it, but it was really inexpensive, obviously due to the mechanical issue that was wrong with the engine. They were very upfront about it, exactly what was wrong about it, and how that they couldn't fix it, and they called it a mechanic special. So I think that this is what you can kind of say with the Steelers. They got everything in place, in my opinion. They got a young offensive line that's moving in the right direction. They're finally going to put Broderick Jones over to the left side. Frazier is an up and coming. I think Falatanu, when he gets back, I know he played one game at right tackle against the Denver Broncos. He played a very good game. He was probably the best lineman in training camp and leading up to his injury, and this includes Zach Frazier. And so I think if he can get back into the same trajectory that he was, he's going to be a huge upgrade at the right position. And I'm hoping that, Broderick Jones moving over to the left side is going to, help him out, right? That's his natural side. That's where he was at for majority of his collegiate career, and where potentially and hopefully he's more comfortable. So you have this offensive line. Sal Malu's coming back. He's going to be less injured. He had that pec injury that kept him out for about a quarter of the season last year, and then he came back, and he wasn't really the same guy that he was the year before. Now he's had some time. He's had, some rest time. He's going to have an entire offseason of rehab, et cetera, et cetera. And so I expect him to be back. You have these two beasts on the outside at wide receiver that are going to force defenses to play cover two and actually defend the deep side of the deep ball, right? Steelers aren't accustomed to throwing in the middle, whether that's the middle of the field or middle of, the center of the field or middle of the play of where they're at. So you have where they can throw it deep, they can throw it shorter, they can throw it middle. They usually miss the middle. It's either short, especially here recently with Russ, short or a moon ball to the outside. And with and so I predict that that's going to be a huge area that the Steelers are going to target when they first start is the center and the middle of the field. But it's going to force defenses to get further back. Defenses early on are going to try to stop the run because the Steelers' identity is a running game. So they're going to be pushing that. So I predict that. But eventually, with these guys on the outside and their force of pushing people up, if they utilize a center in the middle of the field, I mean, this is going to make defenses really have to take a step back. And if you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, they're really going to need to take a step back to ensure because the passing game is going to be a huge part of the offense. They're going to have to take a step back, and that's going to alleviate a lot of running room. A lot of that mess there that stops the like just that muddle of bodies at the scrimmage at the line of scrimmage there for whoever's going to be the running back. I know that Jalen Warren's coming back. The Steelers have tenured him. They're going to get another guy. They're going to get another guy, and I mean, there's what's his name, Ashton Genty, out of Boise State. I'd be excited if they got him in the first. I think he's probably one of the only two, probably only person that's outside of a defensive lineman, maybe a wide receiver, but I don't know, man. With DK and George Pickens, I think you're okay without going wide receiver in the first round this year. And so I would maybe a cornerback. I'm not sure. I know they looked at a couple corners, but I think they're going to go defensive lineman in the first round. I'm hoping Kenneth Grant, but that's just me, out of Michigan. But if they don't go that route and Genty's there, I'm not opposed to that. And if you have a running threat like that with the passing threat, I mean, you just really need to get a guy who's accurate, who can stand in the pocket, make the throw, and protect the ball. And when you look at Aaron Rodgers and even Mason Rudolph, both of those guys can do that. Mason Rudolph has been a guy that a lot of people here recently, since his re-signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, have comped to a Ryan Tannehill and saying, hey, this is a guy that, yes, in his, rookie or early on career when he was starting in 2019, he had some happy feet and, he wasn't very comfortable in the pocket. But in 2023, he showed that he worked on that and that he was not that quarterback anymore. And he was making some impressive throws with the Pittsburgh Steelers there. I'm not opposed to him going and being the starting quarterback and you spending that money elsewhere. 100%. Whether that, I don't know what's out there for you to spend. I don't know, maybe perhaps you can spend it on your own players and extend TJ Watt. Shoot, you have some money for George Pickens if you want to keep um, two monsters on the outside and pay your receivers, and then go with Mason, pick up somebody else. I prefer that the Steelers go with a rookie quarterback in next year's draft. I'm a huge planning for Manning, Archie Manning, all the way for next year. Figure it out, go out and get it. And I think the Steelers are kind of maybe potentially trying to position themselves into that because maybe not Manning, but one of these other quarterbacks. And the reason being is because, this compensation or compensatory draft formula picks, whatever you want to call it, it's working in favor for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. A lot of the players that the Steelers have gotten have been through street free agents, like for instance, if Aaron Rodgers decides to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was cut. So that doesn't go into the comp formula. Neither does Darius Slay. Neither does DK Metcalf because he's not an unrestricted free agent. The only players that affect the compensatory draft picks are those that are unrestricted free agents whose most recent contract had expired. They didn't get cut. They weren't traded. And the Steelers have only picked up a handful of those type of players. And those players, for the most part, are going to be, they're not the highest paid guys, right? Now, the Steelers have lost some players like a Justin Fields, who's expected to be a starter, Dan Moore, who got paid and who's expected to be a starter, and other players. Russell Wilson, I'm expecting him to be a starter somewhere, and to get paid somewhat. So the Steelers are going to end up getting a couple of third rounders, maybe some fourth rounders, fifth rounders, sixth round, whatever. It appears they're going to get at least four of them, and these are high end compensatory draft picks. That'd be amazing because what it's going to do is it's going to help the Pittsburgh Steelers position themselves for more players next year, maybe even get that quarterback by pairing up a couple third rounders or whatever it may take, a couple third rounders to get an extra second, and then taking 2 seconds to trade up in the first. Who knows? But I think that's one of the routes that they're really looking at, and which is another reason why signing an Aaron Rodgers makes sense. Now, signing Mason Rudolph, to me, tells me that they're going to sign Rodgers, because that was the whole deal, right? They even told Mason Rudolph, "Hey, you're coming in at 2 years, $8 million, $4 million each year. You're coming in here to be a backup." They've already explained that to him. He was going to be Aaron Rodgers' backup. Now, a lot of places have reported this, including Antonio Brown at CTESPN, that it's already a done deal. I've seen tweets from other places saying that Rodgers' camp says it's the Steelers. Why they're waiting, I have no idea. I don't know. I know he was seen on a beach walking around. But I will say that one of the fascinating things and why I like Rodgers is, and the best thing that I think he does is, one, he'll stay in the pocket for the most part. Two, you know, um, he's seen everything. He knows everything. So he's like a quarterback. I mean, a coach out there. He's old enough to be a coach too. Uh, he's like a coach back there. He's not afraid to throw over the middle. He protects the ball even though he throws over the middle. Very few interceptions. But the one thing that I think is the best, it's his football IQ. But the specificness about it is how many times he's made great plays because he gets sacked or there's a loss on the field and the defense is celebrating, and he gets the offense up to the field. He takes command. He's like, "All right, let's go." Boom. And they get a offsides penalty, or they force the defense to take a timeout or some sort because they're about to run a play. He's done that to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's been when him and Mike Tomlin have had a moment, where they do a little head nod or whatever the case may be. That's him, you know, because you don't see that with McCarthy's Cowboys and Dak Prescott doing those type of things. You don't see that in Green Bay after he left there. I don't think you're going to see that with Justin Fields next year when he leaves, or as he's being the starter for the New York Jets. That's an Aaron Rodgers thing. And it's not just him, it's a whole team thing. And so that's just um, a little bit of a taste of just how much he has control over the offense as far as the players on the field and how they're in tune with him. They know what they want him to do, what they want. They know what he wants out of them, and they do it. You don't see a Aaron Rodgers led offense having somebody complaining while they're trying to line up and get somebody for a quick 5 yards or a free play. You know, and I for one don't think that Aaron Rodgers would take George Pickens and antics. GP is no longer wide receiver one. That's DK. The guy getting paid $150 million is wide receiver one, which is another thing that kind of led me to believe also that the Pittsburgh Steelers never saw Justin Fields as a starter. They paid today's market for DK and paid him quite a bit. They're not afraid. They just paid was it Malik Harrison, the linebacker, backup linebacker from the Baltimore Ravens most recently. He was also on special teams. $10 million for 1 year. They let go Landon Roberts, who's getting paid $3 million to be the green dot guy out there in Vegas. It's not about the money. They're willing to pay for market, and they're willing to pay what they need to pay if the person is right. And I don't think they feel that the person is right. I think they think that the future is not now, right? They're not going to find, the next Ben Roethlisberger in this draft or in this free agency or within somebody they could trade. Now, I will be honest, and I'll throw this one name out. If they were to trade for somebody, and it's not that is a dark horse, so to speak, I would not be opposed for the Steelers going out and getting Brock Purdy. I think he's a very intelligent person. He scored very highly on that IQ test for quarterbacks. And one of the things that I was really impressed by when he played the Pittsburgh Steelers is his decision making, how often he was correct in that decision making, the positioning of the football when he threw it, his decisiveness when he threw the ball. The 49ers just got Mac Jones out there. That guy was the guy that their head coach was like all in love with. That Mac Jones was supposed to be their answer when they ended up drafting, what was his name? The one that ended up going all over the place at number 4. Man, his name escapes me. Ended up going to the Cowboys. That's how bad he was. I can't even remember the kid's name. I think it was like a 3rd overall pick. The 49ers end up giving up 3 first rounds for Trey Lance. There we go. 3 first rounders for Trey Lance. And that year they end up going with Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, who's going through some contract stuff. Now, Mason Rudolph can still fit as a backup for Brock Purdy. I'd go with Brock Purdy, if you if you're looking for somebody for the future that you're going to, a potential franchise quarterback that can make those right decisions, man. That, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, he's because he had the 49ers. He had a bunch of awesome players around him. He'd have a bunch of awesome players around him here too. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Please hit that follow button, subscribe, 5-star, whatever it is you guys do, like, comment, share, you know what to do. I'll be back on the hangover on Monday. Until next time, peace.